You too. Bye.
Meeting because it's starting at the special time, but this is our regular meeting.
Yes, that's
Huh?
correct.
Yeah. So
We
let's.
won't be doing this again.
So we'll call it to order today, Tuesday, December 3rd, 2019 at 6:30. Nicole, are we ready for roll call? Okay, roll call.
Councilmember Bettacavoli? Here. Councilmember Hudson?
Here.
Councilmember Simmons?
Here.
Vice Mayor McKenzie?
Here.
Mayor Samayoa?
Here. At this point, I'd like to ask everyone to stand and help me with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance.
One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Any changes to our agenda, Ms. Brown?
There are none.
Any closed session reports, Mr. City Attorney?
There is nothing to report.
Thank you. At this point, we'll move to Community Consent Calendar Forum. Individuals wishing to address the city concerning consent calendar items or on matters not already in the agenda, we invite you to make oral comments of up to 3 minutes. Any members of the public like to make a comment on consent calendar or any other things not on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move forward to our consent calendar. I'd like to entertain a motion to, well, what's the will, anyone like to remove any of the matters for further discussion and separate action? If not, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the items on the consent calendar.
So moved.
Motion by Ms. McKenzie, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Bettacavoli. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion's approved with the vote of 5-0. We have discussion items 5 through 7. All matters in this section of the agenda discussed and will be acted on individually. Let's move to item 5. Fire Recovery USA Fee Status Progress Update. We'll receive an update and discuss Fire Recovery US program. Chief Carlin.
Good evening, Mayor and honorable council members. I'd like to talk about the CDBG priorities a little. Just kidding.
Yeah. You didn't get a chance.
Is this on? Can I talk? Okay, sorry. I didn't get to eat dinner. So anyways, we figured it was time after a few months of doing the fire cost recovery program that we come back to the council and give you an overview on what's happening today and talk about some of the data we've collected so far. And then just get some further direction and make sure we're supporting what you guys are looking to see with the program. So just recounting a little bit, the council approved the program back in July of this year. We contracted with Fire Recovery USA and we started to put internal mechanisms in place, which included a bunch of training for us, because as the boots on the ground to go after these calls, of course, we have to complete this training to those folks and getting the data, the right data, so that we can proceed with invoicing and billing for these services. So we've generated the invoices based on the services provided, and the next slide will kind of talk about those services that we provide. And then also, city and non-residences are both billed. That was kind of what we agreed upon after getting the recommendations from Fire Recovery and through their attorneyships on what they've vetted out over years now of this program and what they found to be successful. And then the collections component was added recently after having a couple incidences where we decided, based on some of the feedback we got originally from you folks, that we should have that in place. So if we choose to put someone into collections, the system would be there in place. And I'll talk about one of those scenarios here in a little bit. And so far to date, we've received 2 payments. We get paid once a month. And so those are based on 13 invoices that have cleared the system so far. So the fees for service, so vehicle collision is probably the highest category of what we're actually charging for a service. And we'll see a graph that talks about the numbers and what those look like. House fires are also billable. Anything that has insurance tied to it. So house fires, vehicle fire, and then hazmat incidences that are outside of a vehicle accident type of a scenario. So if you have a tanker truck or propane truck that rolls over on the highway or street somewhere, we go out there to mitigate that. Or a chemical spill, those are all billable things. So here's some of that statistical data that you can see by the call types. What we just previously saw on the last slide. But the vehicle collisions is the highest percentage at 76%. As you can imagine, like we thought, a lot of our calls are vehicle accidents out here on these highways. So there's the breakdown of percentages. The note at the bottom there is a sidebar note because we did charge the D10 levy district fee for fire last summer, and we have since invoiced that. They paid the fee. It was a total of about $11,000. In total, that encompassed services both from police and fire. So once we split that out at the finance department, PD side got about $2,000. We ended up with $9,204. And the fire cost recovery side, that's going into the same fund that these funds are going into today. So when we talk about the totals of what we have. So here's kind of a breakdown of the vehicle collision categories. So we have vehicle accident, we have vehicle hazard, hazmat. That's typically your fluids, leaks type stuff where we go out there and put absorbent down to stop those leaks from occurring. Then we have vehicle debris. So part of your insurance portion of payment covers for fluid leak and debris removal. That's the basis on them paying a fee. It's not actually paying to go for a vehicle accident where you might be hurt, dead, dying, or bleeding. So it's kind of weird, but that's how your insurance pays on these claims. And then a very small percentage, we had a vehicle, 2% were vehicle versus pedestrians. One of those was hit and run, so we don't get to charge someone that leaves the scene and don't figure out who that person was. So there's kind of a breakdown when we look at how the invoices come out. And all this data really is generated on how the report is written that goes onto the invoice. And so that's another training tool that we're trying to figure out how to be consistent with. Really, we're going to a vehicle accident. Generally, it's a fluid leak or a debris cleanup is what we're being able to claim an invoice on. So when we talk about statistics with resident types, so there's a breakdown of our in-town versus out-of-town. So it's a close, match there for in-town, out-town at 37 and 38%. We have, a fair amount of that is unknown at 22%. So again, that's just getting good data in that we can start to get the right facts associated with this. So that's just, again, going to take us a little more time to get this all vetted out. So it's better accuracy. And then there's another category as well. So we're talking about who we're billing out there. Right now it appears it's pretty close to 50-50 between our residents, in-town folks, and then also, you got the people out of town. So some of the other statistical data, we've generated invoicings. There's 65 total invoices that have been generated so far. So when I mentioned earlier about we've had 13 clear, we've had 65 total in the hopper. So we've got several more waiting in progress, waiting on feedback from insurance company or whether they're going to pay a claim. So those are all in progress. So 42 actually invoices still in progress. Those 42 invoices still total a $26,000 number. So there's still a fair amount of revenue out there that's on the table to potentially be recaptured. And this only takes us through November. So, for, basically August where we started the program till now, these are the numbers that we're looking at both from, invoicing to generating revenues. So Fire Recovery USA is very happy with our progress. When they first gave us estimates on our projections from last year's call volume, they estimated at around $100,000. And they said, but your first year is only going to really, recoup about 50% of that. So you're looking at about $50,000. That's based on a 70% capture rate on invoicing, which right now they say we're at close to 95% in capturing of the invoices that are being sent out. So they're very happy with our progress and actually what we're being able to claim. A lot of that's just getting good data in that they get insurance information, addressing, contact information that we can send into the system that they can follow up with and be able to get to the end, goal line of getting that money captured.
Ask a question to the
Yes.
chair. On this recovery, how much staff time are you accounting for dollar-wise to do this?
Well, we haven't broke that down yet as far as staff time. It has taken a significant amount of staff time. I've shared with Marty that, in the future, we're gonna have to look at, because, right now I have a part-time person, administrative, and right now, they don't even have time to do that, so I'm trying to front that time to get this done. When I get into the system and I have, 45 drafts sitting there that I have to look at individually and either approve them or deny them, there's time there associated, but I'm fairly cheap and I love work after hours and weekends like Marty does, and cookies go well.
Well, we don't want this to become revenue neutral. We want to always see
Yeah,
positive on this.
and I've talked with Marty, and this is something we have to discuss for the future. Once we kind of get an idea of where we're going and how this is going, and maybe additional things we might end up taking on board, it's just going to generate more needed time and assistance to manage this program, because I'm not much of a financial wizard, and trying to keep all this straight sometimes is difficult.
Thank you, Chief.
But you are salary paid.
Yes, ma'am, and I love to work and eat cookies.
I love the work.
So anyways, just more of the breakdown stuff here. So we had, 5 were unbillable, 5 non-billable based on insufficient information. So again, this stuff will get tighter as we get better at data and getting information. And the guys are still trying to figure out, like, is this one's kind of a gray area. Do we bill on this one? And typically it's a conversation we have after the fact. Well, they didn't get information possibly. So it's still a training and education process that's going to be ongoing as we go through. So for example, in the 2 checks we've received so far, it was fire recovery collected $7,000. That's what they collected off the invoicing. And after they keep their 20% for the admin fee side of this program, we collected $5,600. So yeah, there's time involved, but we expect this number to keep rising, kind of like with our marijuana dispensaries, how it kind of started off slow and then it kind of just keeps increasing and growing. We anticipate to see that same result with this program, and we're on track to hit the $50,000 mark in a year's time, I think easily. So that's positive for us as we look to the future and this program gets better and better received in the public, with educating them as well of why we're doing this. So again, the current process involves, invoicing based on the fee for service. Generally, it's a vehicle accident we go to, so we collect a fee from the insurance policy, primary goal. So our goal isn't to have a person pay an entire bill portion of an incident, especially when most typical calls of a vehicle accident are accidental in nature, fender bender, negligence of, not paying attention, pulling out in front of somebody. We really just want to collect what you're already paying for, and that's a part of your insurance, claim, and that's what they'll pay. If we don't ask for that, they don't pay it, and they like to keep it, and they put that in a different fund, and thank you very much for making those payments. So really, we're just looking for that pass-through of what's in your insurance claim to collect that, and that's really where we would like to stop at the end of the day, because that'll be sufficient enough for us. There are some decision points, though, that we have kind of put in place, and one of the questions we're asking for you folks to support or not is, we look at things as negligent, malicious, unlawful, are some trigger points where we feel that the person involved is responsible to pay the fees. So in some circumstances, they may not have had insurance, so there's no insurance to claim. Well, because of negligence or malicious, we should be going after them personally. And so then we would just forward the bill on to them instead of an insurance carrier. DUIs, no license, a pursuit, which we have regularly come to find out, we get called out to. Intentional set fires, unattended burns, illegal burns, escape control burns, any of those things of magnitude of where there should have been, care taken, then we feel like we should pursue those folks and make sure there's some sort of payment that's received out of that. And in some cases, we may ask for full payment. So a DUI, for example, where there's gross negligence in some cases, we may go after them for the full invoicing. So, for example, I'll give you a couple examples up here in a minute, but one example is, a complete invoice for response and apparatus and time might be a $2,500 bill. Well, the insurance might only pay $250 of that as a deductible, and so that's all we're asking for, generally speaking. But if we have a malicious, say, DUI, we can ask the person to pay the difference to make up that $2,500 because that's fairly gross negligence. So we have that ability to do that in those situations. For people who are refusing to make payment, are referred to collections. So I've only had this happen twice so far where the person just refused to pay the fee. And in both cases, both cases they had limited liability insurance. So when we get to the insurance claim portion and ask them for this fee, they say the person's only got limited coverage, so we don't pay that deductible. So then we have to make a decision whether we go after that person or not. So that's the next decision point in these situations. So we do have the ability to refer someone to collections if they refuse to pay. In the two scenarios that we've had so far, one of them was a resident from Reno, which kind of triggered us to say, maybe we need to implement the collections process through fire recovery, because there's an example of a person living out of the area who wrecked in our town, who utilized our resources, but is refusing to make a payment. And so in this case, we forward that person on to collections, and we'll see how that plays out in the end. The other person, similar situation, had an accident on a bridge, is a resident of Marysville. And so again, decision point was that because they're a resident of Marysville, we're not going to pursue them to collections. And so that's kind of some protective measures we put in place for the local resident.
Let's talk about that a little bit. Isn't
Okay.
that sort of setting up a situation where it's selective enforcement?
It could be selective enforcement, and again, this is one of the things we're looking for further direction from you folks on whether you like or dislike that direction. It's easy to change. We can send everybody to collection. That's not a problem with fire recovery. It's a matter of clicking a button to say we want all.
Well, I
Kind of the
feel it should
message.
be- Excuse me, I'm sorry.
Kind of the message we left with in the first discussions of this topic was trying to protect the local residents with some degree. And again, if that's something that we want to change, it's easy to change. That's just based on what we did.
I believe in total accountability. The law is a law,
I can support that.
so I'll leave it at that.
Yep, can support that.
That example you gave, that was a DUI crash?
No, it was just, in that scenario, the person's had a mechanical failure, stopped on a bridge, couldn't get off, couldn't move. A vehicle rear-ended him. And so, by police reports, finds that he's at fault for stopping on the bridge and causing the accident. So again, there was no gross negligence, it wasn't DUI, it wasn't non-insurable person. So that's kind of what we looked at as it didn't meet the criteria that we had put in place so far to bill that person or send them on to collections.
Did they cite him? Do you know?
I don't know off the top of my head if they would have or not on that particular case.
That's a state highway, that's a CHP jurisdiction thing?
It was on a bridge.
State highway.
Yeah.
It's our jurisdiction.
Oh, okay.
So, but typically we don't.
Where he's talking about, that's our jurisdiction within the city limits where we handle all traffic collisions, but not all citations are issued out of every traffic collision. Because if you're at fault, you're going to have 1 point on DMV, and then we issue a citation for the violation that you committed, then that's automatic point count number 2 out of 1 collision. So it just depends on the severity of the violation if they cite them or not.
Okay, thank you.
Then lastly we just want to reiterate that we are not charging for medical aids. That's kind of a big deal within fire recovery and across the nation with services is, it's a whole nother animal to tackle, which not that we can't tackle down the road, but it's going to take a lot more work and exploring how to get there, because now we're not dealing with direct insurances. We're talking about Medi-Cal, Medicaid, and different types of the medical components that are much harder to invoice and actually get a payment out of. So just wanted to restate that we're not charging for medical aids. So scenario one, again, just a typical call: respond to vehicle accident, fee based on resources responding and commitment time. Invoice generated, for example, might be $995. This is not a set number. This is just give you an example. The insurance, they send that to the insurance. Insurance says, hey, we pay up to $250 of that. So they do. They say, okay, we'll take that. They collect $250 and the case is closed. We move on. That's most of what's happening within the system right now that I can validate for. Scenario two, respond to a vehicle accident, same thing, invoice, and insurance policy will only cover $250, but the person in this scenario is at fault, is a DUI. We can request full payment of the individual to make up that difference of, say, $995. So we can enforce that through fire recovery. And again, they handle all of this. We just tell them what to do. We just direct them on how far we want to go. Scenario number three, invoice generated, limited deductible insurance. This is the one I kind of alluded to. They don't pay on this claim because of the limited liability. No illegal activity for the motor vehicle accident. Responsible is Marysville residents, and invoice is dropped and case closed. And that's just an example. We can change that. So I just kind of give you some scenarios of what we're dealing with. Now that we got some data, now we got some stuff to look at, what's happening out there. We can explain it a little better. We still get, as far as challenges, we get complaints. So we get more people to come visit us. That's kind of cool. And we give them a tour of the fire station while they're there. But they do like to complain because they are all taxpayers and they pay taxes somewhere and they feel like we're overpaid as it is. So we foot those. We try to educate them and emphasize the fact that we're just a part of a larger piece of the puzzle and get a very small percentage of what you actually pay for taxes. And this is one way to help augment support where we're insufficient in staffing, resources, and different things. So like I said, we only had 2 legit, I'm not paying phone calls, angry people, which is good, I think, up to this point of about 60 some invoices, so far. The information technology connections, we have had some struggles there. There's some bugs because it's a newer system. These 2 systems talk to each other through IT, not through our local internal system, but external exponents. And so we're still working through some of those bugs and making sure that the things talk right to each other, that's not duplication and making more work for us individually. The review and submittal process, like we alluded to, it's time and energy. To sit there and it's reading a report basically for everyone to validate that everything is there. If we submit knowingly an invoice that's not sufficient, it will get kicked out. So then that's where we see these like 4 and 5%ers of like insufficient information, and it's just more work for someone else. So we do have to review those internally, and if it doesn't meet criteria, like there's fires we go to that don't meet the criteria, levee fires out here, encampments, those things that there's really no personable person with insurance or anything. Those are just unbillable calls, and so we have to go through each one of those, make sure it meets the right criteria. The continued monitoring and education, again, it's going to take at least a year to get everything grounded with us. And as we bring new people on board, we got to train those people. And we're just trying to get that squared away. And of course, stuff we learned tonight may change the course in some direction. So we'll go back out and re-educate our folks on anything we may change. Responsible party billing, insurance information, those are the key things. So it does tie us up a little bit longer on an incident because we, may have just tried to jet out of there as quick as we could. Now we have to get physical information from these folks to bill. So it does take a few more minutes on scene. It does increase workload, not just for myself, but also the troopers that are out there getting the data, bringing it back in, getting it in the system. It adds more time to each call that they run. So there is those things that we consider and think about as we move through this. So staff recommendations, we recommend to continue where we're headed, and that is to keep invoicing based on the fees for service, collect the fees from the insurance policy and be thankful for that. Figure out the decision points if we like them or we want to change them or add different things. But you know, the simple ones for us are just the negligence, malicious, unlawful things. You know, if it's illegal, then it's bad, and therefore we ought to hold you accountable for payment. Responsible person invoice directly for the differences in those situations, and therefore we ask for the full payment in these negligent, malicious type activities. Person refusing payment, refer to collections. The caveat could be or not whether or not they're Marysville residents. That's kind of the decision point we need some direction on this evening on where you would like to go with that. Invoicing is being dropped if non-insurance payment and no negligence. So again, we have to decide what is the threshold you're comfortable with us going after people, how far do you want us to go in getting to that finish line, and where we should just back off and let it go, look for the next one, and see which ones are going to pay versus not. There's other
Before you
things.
go any further through the chair, I keep going back to this. I think it's worth discussing. If you find that they're negligent, malicious, unlawful because of those issues, and yet we're exempting Marysville from collections, isn't that an ambiguity? Isn't that saying that, so I think that think that should be scratched. Because you can't do that.
Okay, we can definitely
I guess
go
you can,
in that
you're doing
direction
it,
if
but
that's the decision.
I just have a problem with that. I think
Yeah,
somebody
no, I
takes.
totally agree. Again, we based our model off of the first conversations, which was very initial and trying to massage this through the way, get
Sure.
some data, come back, get further direction for you folks.
So before we start, kind of giving
Yeah, I just
our
asked that
observations
question.
on those
Sure.
things, I want to invite the public, if there's any, first, if there are any questions for the chief, to clarify his report. You got one more slide?
Wait, there's more.
Just
one more.
Run it.
Okay, we're
Go
almost
for it.
there. So anyways, just in doing further research and looking at our existing codes, there are a couple other opportunities we have not been taking necessary advantage of. When we talked about not billing for medical aids, there's a caveat there. And our city municipal code actually states that if a person calls for medical services more than 3 times, we can start billing them. There is a fee schedule within the fee schedule to charge for that. The other is fire alarms, false activations is another one that we do have a lot of calls for. And we couldn't clearly track them based on how the calls were ending necessarily, but now we've changed how we do that. And so in the future, we will be able to track those addresses that do have fire alarm activations. And again, anything over 3 false alarm activations, we could be billing and charging for those.
Ron, could you give the council an example of a popular false alarm? Because I think they'll want to hear this.
Yeah, we have a chronic building that probably goes back to
Brad
Brad's Brad's history, and that's
Thanks.
Ride Out Hospital. I'll take a swag. We go there probably at least 10 times a month. We go there. We have been trying to work with them internally to fix their problems, but they're not exactly friendly in trying to fix the problem. So this could be in one of those avenues where we say, okay, well, we do have a fee schedule and we may start to charge you for these calls, and after those add up, maybe you will fix your problem. Because again, it ties up our resources. We respond to it, we investigate it, we try to help them reset it. A whole array of things that occur there in these 2 areas. But again, these are just 2 things we.
So when you
go
say you
at.
try to work with them on fixing their issue, what does that mean?
Well, we've met with them, we've brought to their attention probably for 4 or 5 years
It's
worth.
been longer than that. 15 years ago, we had the same issue, and we did actually start billing them. The city did start billing the hospital, and the problem got fixed for about 4 years. And then
Yeah, we're kind of back probably.
change of guard on both sides,
Yeah.
it kind of got forgot about, and here we are again.
So I know I have met with them, their maintenance folks directly to say, we got to fix this problem. With the technology today, you can fix this problem. It's not that difficult. But they just refuse to take action, basically, and we can't go in there and muddle their system. So we've attempted, it's just something that keeps dragging on. Now they're under construction, so there's another new, dramatics for having more calls based on construction and stuff. Sometimes it's just them doing training and they're not calling us to tell us they're going to do a training drill, and it gets activated and we get there and, oh, you're training, that's really cool and all, but cool if you would call us and tell us you're doing that so we don't have to respond. Code 3 to put people in jeopardy, in the community to get there. So it's just, again, we find things where we're always looking for ways for revenues potentially that we're not collecting on, or things to add into the mix when we're talking about charging for fees for service. This is already there. It's another option, maybe not today, down the road, that we explore. Like I told Marty, quite honestly, it's going to take more energy to try and track this new mechanisms as well. So it's just something we want to make you aware of and bring to light, that it's another potential to look at for the services fee collection stuff. So,
Okay.
and that is all.
Any specific questions for the chief before we open it up to the public?
Yes.
Yes.
Chair. So, Chief, I mean, I appreciate the work on this. It's not a new idea, but it's a good idea. All right, with the billing. I could get behind on definitely with what's already set within the city municipal billing and so forth, with the false calls and so forth. But question being is that the scenarios you brought up were specifically towards vehicle accidents. My concern being is that, most of the time when I did the job, we never really cared how it happened. We just mitigated the emergency because we weren't necessarily trained to figure out why this accident happened. That was left up to law enforcement. So law enforcement was always the people that were trying to figure out why that incident happened. We just mitigated the emergencies, or now you do, but now you're kind of referencing that the fire department is doing
Data collecting?
Investigation
Evidence
into
gathering?
the accidents to find out whether it's DUI or malicious, or if you're taking in conjunction with the police department, working with you and kind of going from there. I mean, can you see where I'm going with that?
You mean those DOI testers we bought, we should not be using them?
Well, I mean, are you trained? Because quite honestly, I mean, if
that was a joke.
I get it, sorry.
No, so we are not doing the investigative side of things. The actual fire recovery does the investigative side on the back end. So they get a copy of the police report, what's been filed, it has, who's at fault. Because we may have an incident that has 3 or 4 parties involved, and we list all of the peoples and information, and we submit it, and then when it comes back around to fire recovery, they've vetted it out, figured out who is at fault through the police reports. They go after that person. So I'm just saying, at the end of the day, we find out if it was DUI or they were at fault, but we're not investigating.
No, that's where I was kind of going, Chief, because I thought you might be saying that we're now becoming investigators, firefighters, and so forth.
The only thing that's taking us a little bit more time is getting all the information. So insurance carrier information, Allstate. Okay, great, Allstate. Your name, your address, phone number. We're being a little more diligent, where before we might just, oh, that was Joe. Okay, get them off and go, we're going.
Sure.
And so that's where we're being a little bit more investigative, is just getting all the information. Now it's 4 drivers, 4 cars, times 4, where before we maybe just, okay, everybody's cool and good, we would walk away and not really do much. Now we're.
So you're saying that the fire recovery is the one that does the investigation with the information that you provide, and you set the parameters on what they're going to go forth?
Absolutely.
Okay, cool, thanks. On the next side of that is the billing that is happening to, how to describe it? So a while back, when there was a structure fire here locally, the resident of the house that did not necessarily live in the dwelling received what he thought was a bill for what was being sent to the insurance company. An identical piece of paper was sent to the owner of the house, and there was a lot of confusion that owner didn't necessarily understand. Nowhere on that was set a sign. Like when you get your tax bill, it says this is going to your impound account kind of thing. Mm-hmm. It didn't say that anywhere on what that owner of the property got, and they went into an upheaval thinking they were getting billed by the city of Marysville, which created a little bit of muddy water for several council members. So
yeah, I talked to that person directly, and when he came pounding our door down to talk about it, come to find out, the story had changed a couple times on us. Once the guys were there for the call, they didn't get the right insurance information. Sure. They ran with what they were given. So once it got through the system, they figured out that's not the right insurance. Then they had to contact that person, find out the right insurance. Come to find out that guy does not live here. He lives in Baja. So there was a lot of factors going on with that incident that had to be traced down. So there wasn't, we vetted that out because we thought like, well, this is really weird. It kind of seems malicious to some degree, but really there was no malicious intent there. It was more of the information given was false, which we do get occasionally because we ask insurance, Allstate, and really it's Geico. You know, they could give us false information and it sent us on a rabbit trail hunt.
So through that was more like a learning process of just trying to figure out a way to collect information. But on the other side of that was, in that particular scenario that we're discussing here, was the intent to give the owner of that property an actual bill? Or was it just the intent of that to give the property owner a copy of the bill that was sent to the insurance company? I didn't get the end of the story, so I'm asking now.
Yeah, so it's the same process we talked about. When we find out what the insurance is, and this is fire recovery, once they find it out, they send this invoice to the insurance company. It's for the total invoice, so say it's $2,500.
Sure.
And I think that was around $2,500. Well,
I think so.
he thought he was on the hook for $2,500.
Correct.
And he did not want to pay $2,500. So the confusion was they had not gotten to his insurance carrier yet to call him to say, hey, we only pay $500. Will they accept that? So it hadn't gone all the way through the system yet. He kind of shortcutted it and got mad quickly.
Yes.
And so once we figured out, oh, your insurance will pay $500. Well, guess what? We're cool with that. That's it? Yeah, that's it. And he was happy as a clam. He didn't have to pay $2,000 additional out of his pocket. There was no negligence in the fire.
I understand.
It was a standard fire. So once he had the whole story and all the details, he was high-fiving. He was happy as a clam about, oh, it's a great program. I get it. So I understand it. But he didn't, he shortcutted the system and thought.
Did he send a write-up on the paper?
No,
Oh, okay.
no, he just went angrily to some of the council members to express.
Any other questions? I didn't mean to cut off. We're just we're lagging this really long. I don't think it needs to lag that long, but go ahead.
Have we figured out a way to correct that for the future? Or is that just going to be the same scenario every time?
I can tell you that hasn't happened again.
Okay.
I think it's a case by case, and to see individuals, some of that responsibility lies on them.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, specific questions to clarify his presentation? If there are none, I'd like to open up to the public for any comments they may have. Seeing no comments from the public. So what you're looking for us is on your page, staff recommendations, which is the next to last slide. And you're looking at what the temperature of this council is to add or continue where we're at, or if to add, where will we add? Is that kind of what you're looking at?
Sounds good to me.
So it's the staff recommendations right here.
Okay.
So I think he wants to kind of feel us, if he wants to put more work into it. If we're fine with the current program as is, then that's what we can communicate without having to pass a motion or approve a motion. We just he gets a sense from the council on where we're at. If there's a consensus among the majority's council that we want to move a little further, then he'll take that information and come back and probably bring us, something to vote on.
I think the intention tonight was sort of workshop it, like things, and get a sense of where the council stands on some of these gray areas. And then if there is any change from what we're already doing, we would then come back and sort of reconfirm, here's what we think we heard you say, if we're going to make any changes. If we're not, we could continue doing what we're doing. I think that the biggest question for us is really about whether or not those people who may or may not have insurance, or their insurance won't pay for everything when there's negligence involved, and they especially do not live in Marysville because they don't pay for fire services, right? When they live in Reno, wherever else, are those, in particular, I think there's a question about, are those individuals that the council would be comfortable having us go use collections with if there's a negligent activity with a non-Marysville resident and their insurance only pays 20% of the cost or something.
So, question clarification, sorry I get this way, is that if we end up going through collections, does that cost us more? If we end up asking fire recovery to do bigger investigation, does that cost us more?
Yeah, there's another percentage added, so I believe it's 50% of whatever they claim through collections is what then we would get. But again, 50% of zero, and we would be nothing if we didn't take them to collections.
Because collections also usually says, hey, I'm willing to cut this 50% if you pay today. you know, kind of one of those type things.
Yeah, it could be
So-
like, hey, the invoice was 1,000, we're gonna ask for 1,000 and take them to collections and maybe we get $500 out of it. Well, the typical claim on insurance might be $300, $250. So
Sure.
really, it's still higher than an average claim.
So, I mean, I don't mind, if it's gonna cost us more to have Fire USA, Collections USA, what is their name again?
Fire recovery.
Thank you, Fire Recovery. Is they're gonna start charging more to do more in-depth service. I'm not 100% sure how that's gonna be beneficial for us as a city unless
They're
I'm
just gonna
missing
get a
something.
cut, whatever they get.
So they just get a cut of whatever
Yeah.
they get.
Not really more,
Yeah.
say, it's, you know, it's like 20 or 50% of whatever we get.
Right now, they take 20%, they
We
would
get
take
the other
50% on the
Not opposed to
collections.
it, I just want to see where we're kind of going with it. Now, I do like the idea personally of going with what is already set in the ordinance for billing for,
I had,
is,
yeah.
this has been set for 20-plus years, and we have not been doing this. And when we did it 15 years ago, it was effective. It got them to stop. I mean, you in your department now have people that, you go 911 EMS responses 15, 20 times a month. I mean, I remember doing the job when I went 4 times to one address in one day. So, I mean, those things can be,
When we think about care homes too, those are like, we go there all the time.
so my question would that be, a care home has got multiple residencies inside of one address. Are you billing that address or those individuals that are inside of
I
that?
have to get some clarification from our legal team on how we would handle those specific situations, but, you know, if it's one address, I mean, it says, you know, per address.
Well,
I
that
don't know what to
sucks. My
evaluate
roommates
that.
sick all the time. You know, so.
Okay, so do you see yourself, I'm having a hard time with the hospital part. I think we could deal with it differently than start charging them and
I
being
disagree
punitive.
with
Well, I know, but I'm just saying, my mind, I think we need to sit down with their leadership and come up with a solution. If you work with if you haven't got any traction with their facilities folks, then we need to talk to board members or their executive director and make it sure, because they want to grow, they want to be partners, but they seem to fall in communication all the time. And so but I think that could be dealt in a different way, to meeting with their leadership and their board, and letting them know that we need to be partners in this, and this is one area that we continue having miscommunication on, and it seems to be a fairly easy thing for you guys to be able to figure out, hey, we're doing a test. Like, it should be in their protocols, like if they're doing surgery, I imagine they have all kinds of protocols.
You know, I mean, on many of the calls I responded to at the fire department, I mean, to the hospital, the alarm's going off in the ICU, but they don't clear the patients out. They're just looking at the blinking lights, you know, from the fire alarms.
No, I get it. I guess for me, I guess I see them more as a partner, and that we should deal with them a little bit different than being punitive and start charging them. That's my opinion.
Respectfully disagree.
But any other thoughts? So you like the idea of going after folks that are negligent, out of town, and no insurance, to go for the full
I'd like a little more
cost?
clarification on that. I mean, if you're looking for an answer right at this moment, I'd like to say, stick with what's already in the charter, and let's stay status quo for a little bit longer and collect some more information until we can figure out exactly how we're gonna make that happen with the negligence punitive. Like, if somebody has an escape debris burn out in D10 or whatever the case is, was it because their child cut their hand inside of the house and they had to run and take care of that? I don't know. I mean, we're not investigators on that. And then the fire got away, you know? So there's all kinds of extenuating circumstances, that type of situation, so.
Okay, let's go around.
Through the chair.
Go ahead. Uh-huh.
First off, I'd like to refresh your memory, bring you to understand, in violation of non-compliance with the city ordinance, it's a misdemeanor. And Mr. Hudson's absolutely correct. It is in the ordinance. We should be complying with it. If we're not, we're violating our own ordinance. It's a misdemeanor. Secondly, I think that if you sit down again with the hospital, again, and document what's going on, it'll show them the status and what it's costing, maybe you can get some resolution. But this gentleman here says it's been going on for 10 years.
It's 20.
So the point is, with the new regime there, they may not even be aware of it, Chief. I'm not sure. I am sure that the new regime would try to fix that. It's not good for them, but anyway. And also, since you're asking, I do not agree with the Marysville residents. I think that we should review that and treat everybody the same. Just because they're residents of Marysville, we shouldn't be exempting them for violating a law or a DUI or a license or whatever the case may be. We should hold everybody accountable. True accountability.
If they're negligent, not
Yeah, it
regular
has to be
call.
negligent,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Okay.
If satisfy one of these criteria, then they should not be exempted from payment. And I'd like to have a consensus on that when you get a chance.
Okay. Ms. McKenzie and Mr. Botacavoli, thoughts?
I'll go. I have a question about the medical responses. What does that look like, more than 3 medical responses to an address? What is happening with those? Are people just calling for?
It's anything under the medical aid umbrella. I don't feel well, I have a headache, I stubbed my toe, I have chest pain. Anything that's medical related that gets us called there.
Right.
We do have some chronic individuals that tend to call often.
So they're
that
abusing
would-
the service.
Yeah, we have
so
people that
that's-
abuse the system. We have people that are just chronic, who think they have to go to the hospital all the time. With our larger care home facilities, we go there frequently. And so there's probably some room there to try and figure out how to better educate them. Could be just a lift assist. Like a person fell out of bed, no ambulance needed. Well, we go there because they don't have staff to assist and help those people back into their bed. So again, it's our resources responding there to assist them when they're a facility and probably making money revenue-wise off these individuals, and we're augmenting that facility. So there's some things there to consider or look at with those types of calls. There's a gamut of things there with the 3 medical call thing, but we run, we're gonna hit just over 3,000 calls right now. 80% of that's medical calls. So we're running over 2,000 medical calls.
Who have you spoken to on the next topic at the hospital? Have you just talked to staff, or have you talked to administration?
We've only really worked with the maintenance people because that's who we generally tend to work with, whether it's construction and the stuff that's going on over there. And they really run the operations of the facility. Sometimes we've had other venues where we go to the top, they don't even know what you're talking about, so trying to get something fixed below is difficult. So we have not gone to administration on this topic. This is something recently we just came up with as even being in a code and realizing it's there. So there are some options of things we could go hire and bring other department heads and administration into a bigger meeting that might get their attention as well. But it's not just Rite Out Hospital, just to be clear, with the fire alarm issues. We have other facilities. We have some residences that are just chronic as well with fire alarm situations.
So I would agree that it would be good to talk to the administration in any of those situations. And if they can't fix it, then yeah, I would agree with billing them if they're not going to take care of it. So, and then I think I agree. I support the way the program's running right now, and billing when there's not insurance for out-of-town negligent situations. So otherwise, I think it's great.
I think for the most part, I like just the way it is. I'm glad Mr. Simmons clarified it, because I do not think citizens should be charged. They're already paying within their taxes unless, which you clarified, unless it is unlawful, malicious, or that I can understand. But beyond that, the citizens here are already paying taxes for our services.
So that could be a breakout clarification that if it's non-negligence, we could drop a case on a resident, Marysville residents, but if it's negligence, then we go after them evenly across the board.
Right, okay, good. The hospital.
You agree with that?
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that. I just don't think that, I want to make sure that the residents aren't getting charged.
Double.
Yeah, basically double if they're getting charged there and on their property taxes. Secondly, with the hospital, I understand it's kind of you're trying to deal with this, but I know with the police department, if I've got it posted right on my wall in my office. If we get 3 false alarms, he sends me a bill.
Yeah.
So I think the same thing. I think notification to the hospital would be the way to go. Notify them this many false alarms and you're going to get charged. That's the way the police department's doing it. And it made me fix my alarm. So I could, luckily I never got a charge, but I fixed my alarm.
Tonight, but not last night, right, Bruce?
The care home issue, I think, is a tough one. I kind of understand your point of augmenting their services, but at the same time, I mean, they're doing the same thing. They're paying their taxes, and I guess it would kind of be how many are considered a false alarm, so to speak. I think you're going to just have to make judgment calls there. And I would not think that multiple calls to one complex is constituting too many calls unless they're all bogus. Does that make sense where I'm trying to go with it? I mean, I think that's a judgment call you're going to have to make.
Unfortunately, in the fee schedule, it's very small, short, doesn't give any discrepancy in there. It just
So
says
we could change
facts.
that.
Yeah, and we're about to embark on a, reassessment of the fee schedule stuff. But, so we could create, I'm sure, some,
Yeah, I think we have to leave at least enough room in there for you to have some discretion
oh gosh.
on your decision-making. Well, I mean, I think there's got to be guidelines. And I know Mr. Hudson's position on discretion, but I do think there's got to be some discretion for the chief to be able to deal with that. All that being said, I think I like, for the most part, just exactly the way it is.
With holding residents if they're negligent, if they break a law.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you broke a law and something happens, I think that's the attempt to go. And then one last thing, just for input, if you're doing a collection service, if this gets to be where you're using it regularly, you go in and you
Negotiate.
It's not always a 50-50. We used to have it all the time, and you negotiate whatever percent you're going to pay them. So if it becomes regular, you obviously can get a lower percent. So.
Can I have a point of clarification, please? On the rest homes, the 3 calls, is that to patient or to the facility itself? What is your interpretation of that?
Well, the fee schedule just says per address.
Okay, then that needs to be patient for those facilities, I would think.
Like per unit?
Yeah, per unit or per
The
person.
same unit gets 5 calls in, a month, they should be charged.
If that, or charge it right to the patient. They know who the patient is, and they have insurance, and if they're VA pays it, it's, I think, could you do that?
Just to clarify, we have not vetted that out at all. It was
Yeah.
just something oh my gosh, here's something we haven't been doing. So
Would
we
that
really
be-
not even had a chance to talk to Brand about sticking points with that either. So we probably should vet that out, bring back either something more definitive. Like I said, I wouldn't recommend doing it today because we got to figure it out.
Right.
It's just, we just want to bring it to your attention as oh, by the way.
Well, the hospital charges you for every aspirin you get, and they read
yeah.
your name tag, and all
Yeah.
those patients probably have name tags. Read the name tag and charge them back on it. If you don't have a reader, have them read it and give it to you. And that wouldn't violate the health issue. Anyway, that's just, I think it can be worked out. I agree with the mayor.
There's one point of clarification that I would like to make. I'm
Oh,
gonna
God.
let you say it.
He doesn't know a Scooby duck from a mallard duck.
I hope he does.
He wants a cut. So
Actually, we do get a cut on the DUI ones, but the government code says on that side of it. But we keep talking about negligent and unlawful when we talk about traffic collisions. So we got away from the term traffic accidents because they're not accidents. I mean, maybe 1% of them are an accident that are unavoidable, but 99% of them are collisions. It's something that could have been avoided. And our job is to figure out what those laws that were violated, and we take that factor out of the way, and would the collision have occurred? So when we're talking about negligent and unlawful, every at-fault party in a traffic collision was negligent because they violated a law in the vehicle code that caused that traffic collision, or it was unlawful. Whether it's following too close, speeding, ran the stop sign, the red light, was driving in the bike lane, ran over a pedestrian, whatever it is. So I just wanted a point of clarification on that, because when we investigated on our side of it, and we have those reports that are going to that side of it, when we cite unlawful or negligent, those are going to be all your at-fault parties listed as party one in there. So, I mean, there's a rare occasion where it was totally unavoidable, and we see that very few and far between. And with 565 or 585 traffic collisions in the city that we took last year, I mean, that's a high percentage, and I don't know
Well,
how
two
many of
things
those.
on that. One, we're dealing with the auto insurance, correct?
Right.
And then maybe it should be, instead of unlawful, maybe it should be malicious. That's a big difference.
Right, and that's why I said we keep talking about the unlawful or the negligent. Somebody did, commit a violation in order to do that. So when we're thinking about that from, our side of it, when we're giving those reports out, 99% of those, it's unlawful.
Maybe give us a range, what that looks like, meaning in a sense, what does it look like if it's just whoever's at fault gets, dinged, or if they're in the DUI and they cause damage to public property and other,
And just clarifying on the fire side is, for this slide representation, it's not just for a vehicle accident, because we also have fires and stuff that we are responding to. So, the unlawful, negligent stuff as well, it's not just purely we're looking at like the vehicle accident side of things. What's been recommended to us from fire recovery is like the malicious, like DUI, pursuit, fleeing from.
so those things maybe have to be listed for us when you guys come back.
We could do that.
Through the chair.
Yes.
Speaking from experience, not I, but in my family, an accident, there was no guilt levied on the ticket. The insurance company levied the at fault. And so one of the participants in this got 51% of that person's fault. It wasn't the police department. On the police report, there was nothing about who was negligent, who was malicious, or who did anything unlawful. They just wrote the ticket up, and that was what it was. And so I don't know that that's the way it was, Chief. And so the insurance company said that 51% of that person was at fault, and that's what the insurance company paid off on.
So all non-injury traffic collisions in the city aren't investigated to determine
There you
fault.
go.
That's the insurance. That's why we all pay insurance, is for them to determine that fault.
Exactly.
And we take so many of them. So all minor injury traffic collisions to major to fatals are fully investigated by our agency, and somebody is determined at fault. But if nobody's injured and it's a property damage only, then it's just an exchange of information, and the insurance companies take care of that on their end.
So how do you determine if a person's transported in an ambulance, is that an injury?
Correct.
So if the ticket doesn't say who is at fault, I see a dichotomy
There's a
there.
report that's actually generated and taken.
Yeah, well, that's sent to the insurance company.
And if somebody's transported to the hospital with injuries,
Mm-hmm.
there's a full investigation that happens, a full report that's done.
And that's sent to the insurance company. Excuse me, I'm sorry, I'm trying to get a word in here, trying to help you out, brother. That is sent to the insurance company, who then places fault. Your report doesn't come to, anyway, that's this moot point, but I'm just sharing with you, the insurance company placed fault on that, and it wasn't malicious, unlawful, it was a percentage, so.
I don't know where that
Yeah.
took us.
I don't know where we're going with this.
Yeah, I got one last question, I'm just curious, though. When you do a report like that, and you're not making a decision of fault in a vehicle accident, do you bill both insurance companies, both drivers?
No. So what we do is we gather all the information at scene of all the parties involved. We push that through on the invoice with the report. We don't make claim to who is at fault. We don't powwow it out at the scene with the PD to figure out who's at fault. Fire recovery, they ask for a copy of the police report that either does or doesn't point, who is at fault. And then they bill that person who is at fault.
Okay.
But we don't, that's not our side of the.
No, I meant the recovery people.
Yeah, fire recovery.
If they billed, not you directly, you
No,
give them an
Their goal is to
invoice, but-
figure out who is at fault and go after that person solely. So 4 people, 1 person at fault, they go after that 1 person.
Got you.
So you're using, excuse the chair, through the chair, you're using the decision point of these criterion to bill after you get the report back from someone. You're
Well-
not making these decisions yourself.
No,
That's the good point.
they come back to us and say, what would you like to do in this scenario?
Yeah.
And then we have to decide. It's only happened twice
Yeah.
in the 64 invoices that we've had to actually make a decision on what to do. So it's not a regular occurrence at all.
Maybe that could be changed to reflect that very thing, because that's misleading. I think it says that you do all this, and it's not. It's the insurance company that does this. So based upon the insurance company's report,
Yep.
you file a claim.
Yeah, they do all the
against-
research and investigation on the backside.
Then I would make that suggestion, that we change that.
Where's the ambulance in all this? Like,
Where?
for the medical calls? Like if we don't
They're-
show up, there's the medical show up, right? To assist
Totally
the,
separate. They're billing their own. They bill
ICD
for
9
everything.
billing.
They bill for
but I'm
everything.
saying, if we don't show up to that senior home and they need, a patient transfer or whatever, or they, like,
Then
we're
they're
not liable to show up, right? Like if we had to be at a structural fire, right?
Yeah, if we can't get there, then the protocol would be calling the ambulance to come in and help assist that situation. Then they would get billed, and the ambulance is gonna bill them, hey, we're here, we'll help you lift up. So they tend to wanna call us because we don't bill, and they know that for many years. So we're the free call at 2 in the morning to come pick somebody up. But if we can't get there, then we can't get there.
Okay, I think I'm fine with our current program. I think, I'm not fine of holding our residents liable for non-negligent, malicious, or unlawful, and I don't know what that means. But specifically, if it's a DUI, they have no license, kind of that whole list right there. I think those folks should be held responsible, like Councilmember Simmons kind of stated. I do think that we should have a conversation with the leadership of the hospital and let them know that we will start using our ordinance to start billing them if there's no change in the near future. To at least give them a warning, but have some conversation. That's kind of my input on that, and I hope you guys have enough input. Yeah? Enough input?
Yep, I'm good.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Let's move to item 6, approve an application to the State Department of Housing and Community Development 2019 Home Investment Partnership Program. Ms. Shinsky, how did I do? No? Horrible? Sorry.
It's getting there.
Yeah.
So, good evening again, council. So I am here to bring forth for you to adopt a resolution to authorize the city to submit for the grant application for the home program, the Home Investment Partnership Program. So the NOFA just currently came out in October, actually at the end of October of this year. Sorry. So right now, we talk CDBG, I kind of have that in my head, it's completely different, sorry. The Housing and Community Development has recently announced the availability of $42 million of funding that's available for allocation. So the city is one of the eligible home jurisdictions for 2009, and we have experienced past history and success in this program. So last time we were in the program for the home, it was in the 2015, and we were awarded $500,000. And with that, we were able to assist with the rehabilitation of houses for 8 families within the city. So we are looking to bring back this program to apply for it. It's due by the end of January 22nd of 2020. And with that, we're looking at doing an award for $1 million this time. The reason why we are able to do that is because we have a successful program in the past, and because of that, we can actually ask for a higher amount. So right now, we do have a current waiting list. We can find out from Becky the exact amount, but we do have people who are currently waiting for this program for us to move forward. So we already have, we know we're gonna go through the $1 million. It's not just gonna sit there and wait while we try to find people.
Can we ask for more? What's the maximum we can ask for?
I believe it is the 1 million, correct. So I do want to clarify, though, that the home funds can be used for the following programs, which is owner-occupied rehabilitation, which is what we are looking at, first-time home buyer, and tenant-based rental assistance. I do want to state that because we receive bonus points, it is an application that we put in and that they review and give us points, a system for if we actually qualify for it. Because of our success in the past, instead of going for $500,000, we can go for $1 million this time. If we were to look at the new programs like a first-time home buyer or rental assistance, we would receive lower points, which would actually bring down our application, so it would be a little bit harder to be able to qualify for that. Also want to let you know that it can be used for multifamily new construction or rehabilitation, but the project must be shovel-ready. at the time of the application. So that is something that is in with the scope of home, but it's something that we're not actually ready for at this time. So since we've had prior success in this program, and because we do have a current wait list, staff is recommending that we do work towards the owner-occupied rehabilitation portion of this program at this time. And then if you do have any other questions for it, we do have Becky Flores with the Regional Housing Authority who is here. Regional Housing Authority is the group that administers the program for us. They're the ones that the applications go to them, they vet them for us, they bring them to the city, and then we make the ultimate decision if we're actually going to fund that project. So Becky would be the one doing the administrative portion to get the, to apply for it and then to vet the people out. And then after the program is in existence and they have a fully funded loan, then the city administers the loan, as you want to put it, until the loan is complete. So that is what we are asking at this time.
Questions or comments?
I'll make a comment. I've been on the committee, the approval committee for this for the last few years, and I think we've been able to help a lot of Marysville residents who had homes in bad shape, and so I'm supportive of continuing this program. I think it's been really good.
Any questions?
Sorry, I do want to state too that it does fall within the income limits of CDBG when it comes to home programs. So like a family of 4, their income limit would be $51,850. That was for 2019. It does increase every year. So just want to let you know that's kind of, I can give you an idea if you wanted to know about what income limits that we're looking at. So it is for low and medium household within the city of Marysville.
Thank you. How often can we apply for these funds if they get spent?
So I'm going to refer that one to Becky, please.
Hi, Becky. Sorry for taking so long. I was trying to push the chief, but he just kept talking.
That's all right. I'm good. Thank you. Let's see. Home, it's an annual cycle.
Okay.
So similar to CDBG. They do have the 50% rule, however. So you do need to spend down at least 50% if you have a current allocation before you can apply again. So if you get awarded in this next cycle, that'll probably put you out the next funding cycle. But then, we spent pretty quickly. We were doing a lot of projects when we had funding. So maybe we'd be able to apply again in 2 years.
Mm-hmm. I guess I'm asking because your comment about whether it's an infill project for a housing project, or is that what you meant for?
So I just wanted you to know that they're within the home program, those are various programs within.
Correct.
So what I was talking about was multifamily new construction, which would have to be shovel ready.
Correct. So I guess it's figuring out a way that if we have like some nonprofit coming in and trying to build a new home, to kind of plan that out for a couple of years from now, if we can get it designed and get it ready or permitted.
Yes, absolutely, if you want to use home as a funding source for that type of project. But I will mention that there's several other funding sources coming through the state of California right now. Multifamily housing program, otherwise known as MHP, is another one. CDBG, we are talked about extensively. That can also be used for multifamily housing. So if you find yourself in a situation where you're being approached by a developer to either build new affordable housing or rehab something that's existing, and you've already got an allocation of home funds, say for housing rehab, there's several other funding sources that have come online just in the last couple of years that we can look at for that type of a project. A regional housing authority, that's kind of in our wheelhouse, so yep. We have some familiarity there also.
Yeah, I always thought that, and people may disagree with me, but I always thought the B Street property, and we tried to get a nonprofit to look at it and create some affordable housing at the B Street property, and it didn't pencil out. And I know that staff are going to bring back a report from our consultant about possible use for B property, but that's our own property, and it seems to me like it should be, in my mind, fairly easy to find a way to kind of finance that, to build some houses out there on the B Street property, in combination with some mixed use, some commercial and other things.
As I recall, that one had a significant amount of debt currently on it. Is that correct? The one on B Street? Was there an RFP a couple years ago?
Well, we own it, in a sense,
Right.
we would still make the payments, I mean, it's not going anywhere. I mean, we would still have to make the payments on the loan, I'm just saying, to try to build on it.
Yeah, I'm happy to explore
Yeah.
ideas on that one. I just remember when that RFP came out, that those were the comments back from the development community. Existing debt, how would you roll that into a new project and still be able to make those payments, so.
Yeah, that's a good question, I don't know
Yeah.
what that answer is. I figure there's smart people like you guys can figure that one out.
I think the answer is no.
No, I don't think it's a no, I think it's,
I'm
That's
sure
how to
there's
do it.
an avenue that we can explore that makes sense.
yeah,
Roundly, 99.
there you go.
To the chair,
Yes,
are you referring specifically to the B Street property?
yeah, that was my dream at some point in time.
Well, only because,
But not for this application itself, but I'm saying in the future, to start thinking about in 2
I know, but
years.
based on what you were saying about the, still, taking a second place on it or whatever with the loan payments, the loans aren't on that property anymore. They're not guaranteed by that, so that property's free and clear.
Oh,
There's no payment left on that.
That's a good point.
That's right.
there you go. Think about it.
Part of the collateral.
3% in.
Maybe you should meet with Marty after she comes up with her report.
Will do.
Will do.
3%
Okay, now
versus 6.
specifically this home project, any against? And it seems like other people's money we want to bring in and help people to improve their homes, right?
Yep.
Yeah?
Absolutely.
Any comments from the public? Seeing none, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve an application to the State Department of Housing and Community Development 2019 Home Investment Partnership Program.
So moved.
There's a motion. Second. Motion Simmons, second by McKenzie. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion is approved with a vote of 5-0. Thank you so much. 7, I thought we moved this out. It's coming in?
No, it's continuing, it says here, to December 17th.
Oh, okay, so item 7 will be continued, 17. Do we have the rest of the appointments, or were we just making the vice mayor appointment today?
It's the vice mayor appointment today.
Okay, so I've discussed this with Bruce Baracavoli, and I've asked him to be our vice mayor for the next year. Vice Mayor McKenzie has done a tremendous job this year, and I just thought we rotate the responsibility of being my number 2, and I don't even know what that means.
I don't know either.
So,
I don't want to know.
but Mr. Baracavoli has accepted, so I'd like to appoint him as vice mayor for the term of 1 year ending December 1st, 2020. Committee reports. Council correspondence. Nicole?
None at this time.
Okay. Ms. City Manager's report.
Well, I don't want to steal anybody's thunder, but just a quick reminder that the holiday shopping night out is this Friday from 5 to 9, and the city's pop-up will be on display and available and open, so I think we can have 3 different vendors as well as all the other businesses in the downtown, so please come out and join us. And of course, there's the Christmas parade at 5 o'clock on Saturday night as well.
Okay, council comments. Ms. McKenzie.
I just want to say that I'm looking forward to that. Sorry, I'm stumbling. Looking forward to this coming weekend with the parade and the tree lighting. And I wanted to let all of you know, just remind you about the Community Connections event that the Yuba Center Task Force is hosting at the 530 Event Center on Friday the 13th. And it's for recruiting volunteers for local organizations. So if you know anybody, friends, neighbors, who have been talking about asking how they can get involved and serve the community, they can come out that night, and there'll be 15 to 20 organizations, local organizations that they can volunteer with. So that'll be a great opportunity for our residents to get involved. The police department is one of those, but they won't be able to be there that night. And maybe Field Haven, our youth center, our local cemetery. So a lot of volunteer opportunities for the city of Marysville in particular. So it's a good event to remind people of it. I will email you guys the flyers for that so that you'll have that information. And I wanted to say that I was invited to participate in the Honorary Commander Program at Beale Air Force Base. So that's quite an honor. I'm looking forward to finding out about that and bringing, I don't know which squadron I'm assigned to yet, but I'll be able to bring information back to the council about what's happening out there and my little aspect of that. And so the first event out there is our tree lighting night. So I'll be kind of scooting in at the last second for the tree lighting, but I will be there. Those are my comments.
Thank you. Mr. Hudson, Traveler of the World.
Oh, yeah. As I was trying to cram through some emails at Reno, I want to say thank you for, I guess, to Councilman Simmons and Nicole for the Beale Air Force Base passes. That was kind of cool. I appreciate that finally come to fruition. And as for the rest, I apologize for my attire. I'm on jet lag and want to go home. That's it.
And your boat will be ready at 5 o'clock?
Yeah, sure. My boat will be ready for Saturday.
Life vest for all, right?
Yeah.
Mr. Simmons?
Yeah, I'd like to, what squadron are you going to have?
I don't know yet.
Oh, you might have dog pound. Just say that our chief of police is honorary commander now to security police forces. He was selected by the wing commander, by the commander to be an honorary commander. So that's a good thing. And I think that when the city council starts being honorary commanders to the operations field, it really solidifies our relationship with them. It's a good thing. They want me to be the commander for the 12th TAC Recon Squadron, which I gave a presentation out there about when my time with the 12th TAC when I was a 17-year-old guy in Korea. It was fun. It was really fun because they're now at Beale Air Force Base doing the drones, the Global Hawk. So that's about all I have to say. But congratulations to both of you. That's really an honor to be selected for that, and I'm sure you'll represent the city of Marysville well.
Mr. Butterwally?
I just wanted to say thank you for your position as vice mayor. I hope I can fill your shoes with that, and thank you for appointing me for it. Hopefully I can be help with you too. I also want to thank Mr. Simmons about the Beale passes. I did ask him about taking me out to collect at least mine, and if anybody else maybe would want to go. So we're not driving all over the Air Force Base trying to figure out where to get it at.
Well, I'd have to take you one at a time, because then we have a violation of Brown Act. So I can drop you off and grab you, or you, or you, and see his ears light up.
But anyway, I just wanted to thank you on getting that together, or in the staff, whoever finally got that all put together. Nicole. Okay, thank you, Nicole. And then the only other thing I'd kind of like to see if we can get a follow-up, it's sooner than later, possibly, on what's going on with the B Street plan. With that, I don't know if there's anything, if it's in stages, if you can maybe just give us an update when you get a chance of where it's at, even if it's in a email to fill us in where we're at on that. But I'd like to see that. So, and beyond that, we will be in the boat on Saturday. One of us is going to be towing it, I guess, and you're going to tow it. Oh, and the rest of us are going to freeze in the boat. All right. So, anyway, we will be there Saturday to ride in the boat.
Time to turn on the heaters.
There you go. That's it. Thank you.
I want to publicly thank Public Works via Public Works interim at the time, I imagine, that got us some of the preventive work, so then we had a limited amount of flooding in the city during our first rainstorm. I thought the city functioned really well in the storm, really well, compared to even maybe 5-6 years ago when we used to just, be flooded everywhere and stuff. So I appreciate you guys being proactive out there and clearing the infrastructure so then our drainage system can work a lot better. There was a few incidents, and it seems to be that our public works were on top of it during the weekend. I saw a couple people on Sunday and stuff out there working for us. So I think our community does appreciate that, and I want to thank you guys now for the great preventive work, the tree cutting, the branches, just kind of maintaining the city so we would be prepared for the storm. So I think you did a good job. So thank you to Public Works and the crew and the chief for getting them moving in that direction. So now our new Public Works Director, you got to understand that we don't like getting calls from our residents. So preventive measures are always good and welcome. We met one more time. We'll be meeting with the December 18th will be our last meeting of the current 17th of our current working committee with the Ellis Lake. I believe we've submitted a proposal to them to get the pump fixed at Ellis Lake, and I believe that the odds are that they will support that request, and we'll get that fixed as soon as possible so we can get our water fountain going. And I'm crossing my fingers. I kind of try to put Marty on put a little pressure on and asked her, when exactly do you think we'll get our fountain up?
Real soon.
And she said March. So I said, okay, I have a time. I have in my head, March comes, that's spring. If we have something in March, I think that'd be awesome. So just making it public out there since.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
No pressure.
No pressure. Looking forward to Friday, the tree lighting. I really appreciate the little ads that are going to Facebook about our shopping in Marysville downtown. I don't know if you've seen all the different ads that are being put in on our Facebook page for the city. I think they're pretty cute, pretty funny. I hope people show up. A lot of people put a lot of work into the downtown. I think it looks beautiful, and so look forward to having people out there shop locally. I think there's a lot of great places where they can shop. They did a story today on the what's that magazine that comes on a monthly basis on the Prospect. So there was an action article there on D Street merchants, and they focused on a couple of businesses. And I think there are some great deals and some great things that you can buy locally for your loved ones. And with that, I'm going to maybe just kind of share that I have been given the position of vice chair for SACOG starting January. So the hope is that if elected again, I'll be the chair of SACOG. So it's good for our little town, and we haven't had a representation chair in SACOG ever. So there we go. Okay. Thank you. So with that, any public comments? Do you have a closed session? Oh, jeez. Sorry, I should have shut up a long time ago. So adjournment to closed session, public comments. Any public comments on the closed session matter? Conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, initiation of litigation pursuant to paragraph 4, subdivision D of government code as described. One potential case. Any comments from the public? Seeing none, we'll move to closed session. Reporting next week.
I'll do both. I'll report out now, and then I'll report out next week.
Go ahead.
Yeah, the city council unanimously authorized the city attorney to initiate litigation. The specifics on the defendant will be made known once the case is filed.
With that, we'll adjourn to the next council's meeting on, why is it a special meeting again? Oh, because it starts at 5?
Yep.
Why are we starting at 5?
Because we are going to be, we have a closed session items that labor negotiations.
Okay, we'll start special meeting Tuesday, December 17th at 5 p.m.